Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the channel. My name is Gavin, and it is a beautiful day out here in Utah, 50 degrees and sunny. I know that some of you guys on the East Coast are getting absolutely pelted with snow right now. But anyways, we have some absolutely exciting news about the 2020 G80 M3 that was just leaked, so make sure to stay tuned. Oh my gosh, so on such a beautiful day, I could not think of a better place to come to film today's vlog. Just look at the mountains up here right now. Oh my gosh. And for those of you who are on the other side of the pond, it was recently Veterans Day, and check this out. There is a massive American flag hanging between the canyons out there that you can see right there. But anyways, let's dive into it. So at this point, we have quite a bit of information released officially by BMW about the new G23 series, but really not too much information at all about the G80 M3. But lucky for us, there's been some information that was recently leaked by a reputable source over at BMW blog. Now, it's pretty common for accurate information to be released by reputable sources before it's officially declared by the manufacturer themselves. And so I think that we can pretty much rely on this information and say that it's going to generally be pretty accurate. So what we know so far, basic information on just the 3 series in general, is that they're going to start rolling out the new G20 chassis in early, I think it's March 2019 as 2019 models. So that means what we can expect is for the new G80 M3 to be released either late in 2019 or early in 2020 as a 2020 model. Now, although we don't have images that have been officially released from BMW, we do have some renders that I think are going to be pretty close to what the car is actually going to look like. Here's what the normal G23 series looks like. And again, here's the G80 M3. Disappointingly enough, we know that with the new G23 series, they're not going to be offering a manual transmission option, at least in the United States. And so with this piece of information, I think a lot of you guys out there are going to be happy with it, and that is that the 2020 G80 M3 is going to be offered at least with an optional manual transmission. So, for those of you purists out there who would absolutely just drop BMW if they didn't offer any type of manual transmission, you guys can sit back and relax for a little bit, because you know one's coming. We don't really have any information if that's going to be the only option offered, but if you ask me, I think that they're definitely going to offer an automatic along with that, and I would guess that it's going to be the ZF 8-speed. And now onto what I think is possibly the biggest and most exciting piece of information that we have so far about the G80 M3, and that is that this car is going to come optional with an all-wheel drive drivetrain. Now what this means, this is the first ever M3 to be offered with an all-wheel drive option. It does leave us to a little bit of speculation when it comes to the transmissions, because cars like the current M5 that have selectable modes that allow you to go between all-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive don't have any manuals available at all. So currently there are no BMW transmissions that are manual with that drivetrain. Now what I think that means is there's going to be one of two things: separate all-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive models that each have automatic or manual options, or it will be like the current M5 that has selectable options within that one model that allow you to go from all-wheel drive to rear-wheel drive in the same car. So if the drivetrain is going to be an all-wheel drive with selectable rear-wheel drive, and it has a manual transmission offered, not only will this be the first M3 to ever be offered with an all-wheel drive drivetrain, but it will also be the first ever BMW to be offered with an all-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive selectable drivetrain that also has a manual transmission available. And now onto the engine. This is big news as well. So what we know about the past F80 M3 is that it had a hopped up version of the N55 called the S55. Well, that engine's going away. And for those of you who don't know as well, the N55 was replaced by a new engine called the B58. And what's going to come in the new G80 M3 is a hopped up version of the B58, which is going to be called the S58. And so this really is going to be an all new M3, including the engine. What we know about the horsepower specs, or what we think we know about the horsepower specs, is that this car is going to have anywhere between 450 and 500 horsepower. And honestly, I think that we can say for 100% surety that it's not going to be anything less than 450. BMW has a pretty good reputation with upping the horsepower with every model, and if we look at the F80 M3 competition package, that car has 444 horsepower in America. So they can't do anything less than that. If I were to guess personally, I would say that it's going to be closer to 500 horsepower, and here's why I think you can rely on that. The F33 series, the 340i, currently has 320 horsepower. Now, what we know about the new G23 series is that M340i is going to have, at least in America, 383 horsepower. That's a huge bump. And so, if the normal 3 Series can get bumped by about 60 horsepower, then I think we can expect something similar on the M3. Expect this S58 engine to have a 3-liter straight-six single turbo, and I think it's going to be a monster. This M3 is going to be really fast, not only because the new engine with an increased power level, but also because this car is going to be lighter. The normal new 3 Series is about 120 pounds lighter, and we can at least expect that weight to carry over into the M3. Now, obviously, they're going to have some tricks up their sleeves if this car is going to be lighter and offered with an all-wheel drive, but we'll see how that pans out. What we can also expect with the new G80 M3 is that it's going to follow the same kind of path that BMW has been taking recently in all of their sports cars that they've released, and that is that they're more returning to their roots of how they used to make sports cars. They're going back to cars with sharper steering that gives you more feedback, better handling chassis that just feel a little more simple and really involve the driver more than they have been in the past. You know, for a while, a lot of people have been complaining about every single model of BMW going further and further away from what they used to be, and I think that now is the tipping point to where we're going to start heading back to that original BMW formula. To wrap everything up and kind of go full circle here, what we know is that this car is most likely going to be a 2020 model released either really late in 2019 or early to mid 2020. We also know that this is an all-new car that's going to be offered with at least an optional manual transmission, and that it's also going to have all-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive. We know that it's going to be lighter, we know it's going to have an all-new engine with more power, and we know it's going to be fast as hell. That definitely makes these cars the ultimate driving machine. Now let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Do you think that the new G80 M3 is going to be a huge vehicle for BMW? What do you think about BMW making this new 3 Series the first 3 Series with available all-wheel drive? Do you think that it's going to be separate models, one's all-wheel drive, one's rear-wheel drive? Or do you think that it's going to be like the M5, where it's going to have selectable modes that are going to let you switch between all-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive in the same car? I'm really curious to see how that's going to play out with a manual transmission option, and we'll see that coming in the near future. As always, guys, if you enjoyed today's video, give it a big thumbs up, and if you're curious to see more information about these BMWs coming out, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and if you're interested in older BMWs, newer BMWs, we feature all that stuff on the channel. And now it is time for me to get in this E36 M3 and go for a drive on this beautiful day here in Utah, in these Utah mountain roads, and I will see you guys in the next one. 593.